This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use, but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of All Too Real 2. My name is Michael E. Cullen II, and with me, as always, is...
Sesame, the wave, and Carta.
Cool, dude. Catch the wave.
Yeah. Wait, what?
Yeah.
That's, what, the Max Headroom dude, right?
No, I don't know. I was just saying catch a wave like you're surfing, man.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally, dude.
Before we start, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you have any tattoos, Sesame?
No.
No. Would you ever get one?
Probably. I've been thinking about at some point getting some kind of cool design. I'm not really sure what, but something.
Yeah. If you were to get one, would you get one on your forehead?
No.
Okay. Because I just recently saw a video of a woman who got the word Trump on her forehead.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought that was fake at first.
Yeah, me too. But then it is legit.
Oh, God, that's sad.
And I mean, my thing with that is if you're going to get a tattoo of a public figure, I mean, you know, I'm not saying that I support Trump or anything, but, you know, you support Trump, whatever, you want to get a tattoo, that's one thing. Just don't get it somewhere that you're going to see it every freaking day and everybody else is going to see it and it'll probably stop you from being able to get a job somewhere.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, yeah, maybe you'd be able to get a job like in a warehouse or something. I'm not saying that's a bad job. I'm just saying where you're not like in the public eye. Even then, though, you probably won't get hired.
Also, it's like, you know, you're getting a public figure. It's like all those people that like got Korn tattoos when Korn were a popular band or something, you know, and you're just like, if Korn breaks up or, you know, one of them commits murder or something, you're stuck with that on your body forever.
I mean, it's like all the people who got like the, you know, the Jared Fogle tattoos on their chest, you know, because they were Subway fan. But God damn it, now I got to get laser removal on my, you know. I
mean, I had to remove the big Kevin Spacey face I had on my back. I mean, it was.
It hurts to get those laser removals.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
I mean, it was right next to my Bill Cosby and my Harvey Weinstein ones. I mean, it was.
Yeah, you had three heads. You had yes. It was like a three-headed snake, but like
it was actually like it was like Mount Rushmore, and I had the three of them, and then I randomly also just, you know, had Big Bird on there.
Yeah.
Big Bird can do it. No, I you know.
Wow.
You know, all good role models.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So yeah. So I thought that was interesting, and it made me think of this movie that we're covering today, in the fact that people are so easily led astray into cult-like behavior. And into, you know, fascism. Yeah. So, you know, and it happens on all levels, even if it's just, you know, people that are like so obsessed with Taylor Swift or the Jonas Brothers or something. You know what I mean? It's just something, you know what I mean? It's, or whatever the kids are into these days. You know, they're Dave Clark Fives and their Bee Gees and their New Kids on the Block, right?
Sure. Well, no, New Kids on the Block were having like a revival moment for a while there.
They still are. They do tours every year, but you know, they're not the new hotness.
They're the old kids on the block now, but
yeah,
but they were so clever.
Yes, the old kids on the block, the old kids in the nursing home. No.
Wow.
I'm falling down, not hanging tough. Anyway, so
Wow.
So today on the show, we're covering a film that was part of the After School Special series that ABC had for like decades. It originally actually aired in 1981, 2 years prior to being a ABC After School Special, even though it was made for an ABC After School Special. It aired in primetime because they thought it was so good and poignant that they aired it in primetime television. ABC, the ABC After School Special was like a anthology series that aired from on ABC from October 4th, 1972 to January 23rd, 1997. So well over 30 years.
Wow.
So not 30, is that 30? No, 20 years. Well over 20 years. I'm doing math bad. Like 25 years. I was like well over 20
years.
Yeah. 25 years is nothing to sneeze at either.
It's a long time.
Yeah, I don't know why you would sneeze at anything though, so that's just kind of weird. But and they had like usually around 5 or 10 episodes a season, so there was 154 total during the 25 seasons, and most episodes ran for like an hour, and it was usually aired in the afternoon after school, so that's why it was called After School Special. So anyways, this episode is called The Wave. It was directed by Alex Grassoff, who is known for directing a lot of television, mostly back in the 70s and 80s. Nothing majorly of note. Then it was based on the third wave, which was an experiment put on by teacher Ron Jones to explain to his students how the German populace could accept the actions of the Nazi regime. So it debuted on October 4th of 1981, and then was aired again almost 2 years later as an after-school special. Yeah. So it was a fictionalized version of the true events that happened in the late 60s, but this was updated to the early 80s. And it stars, it was written by Johnny Dawkins and Ron Jones, who was the teacher that actually did this experiment in his own classroom. And it stars Bruce Davison as a fictionalized version of him renamed Ben Ross. Then you have John Putch, who is now a really well-known TV and film director. He's actually the son of Gene Stapleton from All in the Family.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he stars as David in this, who is the boyfriend of the main girl in this, Lauree, I believe, played by Lauree Lethin. Then you have another major character is Johnny Doran as Robert. So what are your initial thoughts of this film here?
I really like it. I've been watching this off and on since I don't know, about 10 years or however long it's been on YouTube.
Yeah.
I usually watch it at least maybe every couple of years. I'll just randomly think about it and I go, oh, I think I'll go watch The Wave again. Because this is pretty short. It's only about 45 minutes long without commercials. I mean, and I liked it. I thought it was pretty good for what it was. I mean, it's a made for TV movie. You can't really do too much with it, at least back then. But yeah, no, I really like it.
Yeah, for a 1981 made for TV movie, it was actually pretty well produced. Pretty dated. I would like to see, I mean, I know they did a German remake of it that you were telling me about, like sometime in the last decade. It would be interesting to see a modern update of this made in America,
Yeah.
Home of the free, or Land of the Free. Land of the Free, Home of the Brave, because I was born in the USA. Because that song is very patriotic, right?
Well, no, but it doesn't matter. Everyone plays it anyways. They're like, yeah, you're gonna firework play.
They play it at political things. Like Ronald Reagan played it back in the 80s and didn't realize that the song was not really pro-America. Yeah, which is another thing that's happened recently, where somebody plays a song that they're not supposed to at an event.
Yeah,
it'll be a few weeks ago by the time this airs. But Donald Trump recently played at one of his rallies. He played on the big screen, a live performance of Celine Dion singing the My Heart Will Go On from Titanic without her permission. And it's just kind of ironic that they're playing a song about a sinking ship. Anyway, so it's a movie about it. So.
Exactly. Oh, Donald.
I mean, I'm not saying that they're necessarily a sinking ship, because who knows? in this
Right.
world.
Oh my God.
Which this film brings to light in a lot of ways. So
yeah, well,
why don't you tell me a little bit about what happens in this short film?
okay. So again, it's based off the social experiment, Palo Alto, California, 1967, from the teacher, Mr. Jones, who was kind of like
Mr. Jones and me. Oh, sorry.
He was kind of like I wouldn't say he was like a radical, but he would expose the students to like lots of different like ideas. Like I think at one point he even had like a Nazi, like an actual member of the Nazi party. Like, and maybe I might be thinking of someone else entirely. Hold on.
I'm saying I don't know if I've read that, but yeah.
This might be a different guy I'm thinking of. But anyway, but he did this thing, just like in the movie right here, where this student, they're talking about the Holocaust, and that's their their lesson for the week or whatever. And then and then one of his students, Lauree, in the movie, she asks them, how could the German people claim that they didn't even know what was going on? Like, it's one thing to like, say, oh, I didn't have anything to do with it, blah blah blah, but like actively claiming that you just were completely ignorant, like how could you even say that and like be truthful? And so he was kind of stumped. He's like, well, I don't really know. That's a good question, So then he started reading books in the library and stuff like that about the Nazi regime, and he got the idea of like, oh, I can just maybe try something out here. So the next day in class, he has them, he basically like says like, hey, who wouldn't want a taste of power and success, things like that. And all it takes, is a little bit of discipline or whatever. So, he kind of, grabs their attention that way because, they're teenagers and shit. Of course, who wouldn't want power and success, especially at that phase of their life where they're going into adulthood pretty soon, So he's like, okay, well, it all starts with posture. And so he teaches them how to sit, quote, correctly, very attentive. Then he has them pretty much for like the whole class duration, just practice getting to their seats as quickly as possible. And eventually he's got to the point where they got in their seats half the time than when they first started in the beginning of the class or whatever. Mind you, nitpick here, but I always love it when like they have these movies or shows where like a teacher is shaking up the system or whatever, and like nobody hears what's going on. Like nobody's hearing the class keep going in and out of the classroom for like 45 minutes. Like
the math teacher down the hall isn't like wondering what the fuck is going on or something.
Like no one pops their head out. Like, what? I hear all these footsteps. Like, what's going? No, apparently it's just fine. And so
well, maybe here's my theory. In these schools, they have really good acoustics in the room and very good like soundproofing between the walls.
That's a good point. But those Palo Alto schools are known for that. I don't know. Well, Palo Alto's full of all weird people. I mean, because they have Stephen Glass had his brother pose as George Sims from the Kevin article in the Stephen Glass movie, Shattered Glass. Check out both of those reviews, the one for 2018 and the one we did a few weeks ago. And then, anyway, so he's pretty much thinks it was like a 1-day experiment, right? And he's going to go back to class and it's going to go back to normal. But then he shows up to class and everybody is already sitting there silently in good posture and waiting for him to, speak or whatever. And so he's like, okay, I guess I can play along with this for a little while. And then so, he's got him standing up when he asks him a question, addressing him as Mr. Ross because in the movies he's called Mr. Ross, and he's got him addressing him by his name, and then they answer the question. It just like it really gets out of control real fast. I think the original experiment only lasted 1 school week, but in here it's about 2 weeks. It seems like how could that happen within 1 week? Well, it did.
It seemed too far fetched that that people had thought it was made up, but it actually happened in a shorter time than when this happened. Yeah.
Not only shorter time, but also way more obvious. So in this movie, it's just called The Wave. In the real experiment, he called it The Third Wave. And they're doing the class on Nazi Germany. And they're like, so it's just like, really? Like, you guys were not paying attention.
Might as well just call it the Third Reich. I mean, it was just like...
It was like he was like almost intentionally making it that obvious. They just didn't get it. And like, well, that kind of proves his point even further. Like, like he literally could call...
It might also prove the point that people don't really know much about. They didn't at that time, maybe didn't know about the idea of the Third Reich until they were taught it. And maybe
that's true.
Yeah. Because now you have the internet and everything where kids are probably more aware. But then there's things like this, like where I know that there are so many people that aren't even aware of things that are going on in the world currently, let alone history.
I mean,
I'm talking about adults. Like I remember like 4 or 5 months into the current genocide that's going on in Gaza, a guy I worked with saw something on the TV where we were, and he's like, what's that all about? And I had to explain to him, and he hadn't heard anything about it. And it's just like, kind of sad, but it's also a testament to the fact that a lot of this stuff is actually kind of hidden. And I mean, you go back to like the Vietnam War and stuff, and there was stuff on TV, but the only reason that people tended to care about that is because there were actual U.S. soldiers involved with that. So it was more of a concern to people, because we tend to live in this like bubble where we only care about people that are like ourselves. So
it's that tribalism. And then and so he really exploited that. And there was, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here, but there is this one part in the movie, and this was also true in the actual story, is that in the real story, this reminds me so much of QAnon. Like, it's scary almost, like crazily. So in the real story, this kid was either watching TV or he was reading something, and then like a commercial came on, and it, like, this had something to do with surfing or something to do with the wave. And so he went to school next day and asked them, "Oh, I saw this thing. Is that like some secret code? Like about the wave?" Like, and so like the teacher, he just went along with it, like, "Oh yeah, totally." And so like in the movie though, it's a magazine, and I swear to God, that gave me shivers down my spine, because it reminds me of QAnon so much. Like, oh, the secret messages and codes and symbols.
They have to quote unquote bake everything,
right?
Because they call it baking, because they take these crumbs and then bake them. Which as somebody who's baked things before, that doesn't work. You can't take crumbs, like you can't like crumble up an old cookie and then rebake it. It doesn't really make sense, because it just comes out burnt.
Exactly.
So I guess that is a good example for what they're doing.
Right. I know, such a stupid, but it reminded me of that, like so much of like the Q people who are like especially like when they got into like, that's the other thing too, is like how special people feel when they think they've come upon something that's like secret and like nobody else about. So like, and the reason why I thought it was weird is because I used to study conspiracy theories all the time. Like, I still know quite a few about them. And so like to see all these people in 2020s talking about like reptiles and reptilians and these secret symbols and stuff like that, I'm like, bitch, I've been learning that shit since 2009. Like, you know what I mean? Like, like
it's all just like recycled shit. And that's the thing that like with something like QAnon, for example, it's like every conspiracy theory under one umbrella. So and the people within it don't necessarily all agree with all of the conspiracy theories that are under that umbrella, but if they latch onto one of those things, then they feel special and that they're part of this group, and they just assume that anybody that follows this group agrees exactly the way they do. It's just like anything when it comes to like, if you join any kind of group, like it makes sense. It's like you go to summer camp, you are in a school play, you join a new religion, whatever it is, you get this kind of high feeling that I'm part of a community, and there's nothing wrong with that in theory, but when it becomes like the end all and be all controlling aspect of your life is when it's scary, and you can't when you can't even like pour a bowl of cereal without thinking about that thing. Like, it's like, oh, I'm looking at this box of Count Chocula, and oh wait, now that means this, whatever. So
the secret decoding of Count Chocula.
No,
I remember people saying stuff. It was like a pamphlet I was reading or something a while back, like a long time ago. It said something to the effect, I don't even remember what it was even about. It's some kind of spiritual thing. It said something along the lines of like, there are two types of people who believe in this. It's like those who give their entire life to it, and those who like just claim like this is like their religion. It was basically like saying like, oh, you want to be the first category, not the second category, because those people don't matter. And it's just like, well, they kind of still matter, don't they? Like, I mean, like, but no, apparently not. Like, no, you got to dedicate all of it. So like, he came up with these like mottos, like strength through discipline, and then there was strength through community, and there was a third one. I don't remember the third one. Do you remember?
No, I don't know. Let me see if I can find it anywhere. But
three models he came up with, which are just basic autocratic stuff, like nothing special about it. Really.
Typical fascism.
Pretty much. Like, you don't need to look it up. It's fine.
Yeah.
So what else happens? So like I know that I said that stuff about the sitting
So
down.
basically, what ends up happening at one point, Lauree, who writes for the newspaper at the school, starts to feel weird about this whole thing and thinks that it's, it's like not a good thing that's going on. And so she writes an expose about it for the school paper, and her boyfriend David is like really into this wave thing, thinking that it's going to help him with his football and everything in his life, that it's going to just help him to be a better football player, a better man, a better whatever, and so he breaks up with her after she publishes this expose. Her best friend tells her not to do it at one point too. Her best female friend, I should say. And so he rejects her. And other students are bullied by members, and but like basically like the members, which will happen, like when you get to this point where it's like you start to get that superiority type of feeling where you think you're better than everybody because you're part of this group.
Right.
So you start to become either judgmental or mentally or physically to other people, and start bullying people, and be like, oh, you're just, you're a snowflake, which is the newer thing that they started calling people back in the, that was a good one. Or now it's like, oh, you're just a, whatever it is, like some kind of like, feeling. I don't know why they still latch on to snowflake for some reason, even though it makes no sense. But they'll come up with some kind of name to call people who aren't part of it. It's like, you even got examples of that in like literature, like where you've got like, I think to a smaller degree, you've got like somebody who became very opinionated and bigoted in her life, like J.K. Rowling, who within her within her series basically had a clear demarcation between like wizards and muggles. It's muggles are regular people, and it almost seemed like the wizards were a better class of people to a point. And I mean, there was even like, in some of the Fantastic Beasts movies, there was like a lot of allusions to the Nazi regime in that as well. So which he obviously never really understood and became a transphobe.
Yeah, I don't really understand much of anything at this point, but
yep.
That's
right. When you live in a castle full of black mold, that'll do it to you.
Allegedly black mold. Come on, we don't know for sure.
Yeah, and she's allegedly a transphobe. I don't want to get sued either. So
because you don't live in Britain, so you don't have to go by their defamation rules. So
yeah.
You're in the clear.
Even though we did do a whole episode about cancel culture and her anyway. So
right, it was like a 2 episode. I thought it was like was a really long. No, I think it was 1, but really long. But
it was a 2 episode that we did on cancel culture. I think one of them mainly focused on her, and then there was another one that was about other people. So yeah, it
was back in 2020, back when she wrote her.
Go back and listen to that, folks, if you want to, and see if we make any sense. I don't remember any of it. So
I know I was just like, that whole summer was like a blur to me now.
Yeah.
I know I was kind of really about that going on, but
they're bullying other members, and other people are like voicing their concerns to parents and administrators, who then start complaining to Ross, even including his wife, who thinks this is not good. And she's like another teacher at the school. He begs the administration basically for enough time to complete the experiment. So the expose ends up being published, and the Wave ends up denouncing the school paper and singles out Lauree, and they go to attack her. And David sees this, and he's like worried for her, so he warns her to stop speaking out, because he just doesn't want her to get hurt, which is an interesting thing, because like in these type of situations, like with Nazis and stuff, I mean, I'm sure there were people that were warning their Jewish friends or other people that were speaking out to be like, don't be, or they're like, they're not necessarily Jewish friends, but they're friends that were sympathizers to the plight of the Jewish people and other people being, genocided. They're speaking out, and then it gets to the point where, like currently we have a situation where, I don't want to get on too much of a soapbox about Palestine and Gaza, but the fact is that what happened on October 6th was bad. It shouldn't have happened. People died. It was bad. But what's happened since is horrible. And if you ever speak out against it, somehow you're considered evil for trying to speak out for people that are innocent, that are being murdered in kind, basically for the fact that somebody that was of a similar background to them did something bad. It doesn't make any sense. And we've had this happen in other times in society where, you got to find an other to blame. I mean, it's the same thing that happened to the Jews back during this time, during the World War II, where they needed to find a scapegoat for all their issues and problems in the world. So it's like, oh, we'll just blame it all on these people. And then anybody that spoke up for them was considered, I know within Germany, people that spoke up for Jewish people to try to protect them were considered evil because they were protecting this group of Jewish people. And the same thing is happening again because society never seems to learn from history. It's people forget things that happened like 2 years ago, let alone 70 years ago or whatever.
Right. Well, the thing about that too is so I was watching this documentary about Trump. It's from 2020, and yes, this is the one time where bringing politics into the episode actually makes sense because we're actually doing it.
Yeah.
It still makes sense no matter what, but here it's like a direct correlation. So it's called Unfit, and it was basically just talking about how Trump was unfit to be president, how he's like a sociopathic narcissist or a malignant narcissist, etc. And so the one guy was saying he goes back to chimpanzees, and so they did this this woman, I forgot her name, like Jane Goodall or something like that.
Jane Goodall. She was the one. She was the expert on gorillas and stuff like that. The movie Gorillas in the Mist was about her.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So it was about her time with them, and then I guess one of this tribe of the chimps, or I guess maybe tribes not the right, whatever grouping of chimpanzees, and it got so large that they eventually split off into two semi-tribes just because of how, I mean, you can't have hundreds of people you at some point you have to sort of do a demarcation, not because you're opposed to the other people, but just the sheer fact that you need space, you know what I mean, physical space. So that's how it started, was just based on that. It wasn't because they were fighting or whatever. But then one of the quote unquote alphas of one of the tribes decided that he was going to start some shit with the other group, and then he beat one of the other chimpanzees to death, and then the other ones came and they pretty much committed genocide against the other sub-tribe. And so the guy said, it goes, now, man, so now, if we believe in evolution and that we believe, that eventually, over time we were descended from these animals. So who do you think we were descended from? The people who were killed or the ones who were the killers? And so therefore we have this sort of ancient, almost genetic memory in our brains to the killers. You know what I mean? So we are them in a weird way. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm not really explaining it well, but
Oh, I know, I understand. Yeah. I mean, it reminds me, earlier before we were recording, we talked a little bit about Dr. Seuss, and it reminds me of the idea of the story of the Sneetches. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
No.
It's a story basically about this group of creatures called Sneetches who from what I remember, I'm trying to remember the exact story. Some of them had gotten their bodies adorned with these stars on their belly. And so they were considered a more superior group of people, even though they're the same race of people, because they had adorned themselves with these, stars on their belly. So then things started to flip. And then all of a sudden, the people without the stars on their belly were the more popular ones. And so people would go and this guy created a machine where you could get your stars removed. So then you would be the more popular one, and then it switched to the other way, and it was going back and forth, where it's what's popular makes you a better person or something. And so it was like a really good allegory for racism and the idea of superiority and basically for Nazism and stuff and fascism. I don't remember much more of it, but it always stuck with me after I read that when I was a kid. So yeah,
Sneetches get stitches, right? And then
yes, they do.
Well, don't stitches, they get stars, but whatever, and then
I
think I remember the story now. But didn't the guy have the machine? Didn't he also have the machine that gave them stars as well? So he's playing both sides.
He had both machines, and he was basically taking advantage of the people because the stuff too. So it was an idea about people being taken advantage of as well. So it's just interesting story. I need to reread it. I haven't read it in probably 30 years, so it's so
yeah.
More.
Yeah. But so it also go ahead.
I was gonna say, back to the story, if you want to get back to the plot.
Sure, yeah.
Here, after the expose, basically expose is published, then David tries to protect her, and so David and Lauree ended up visiting Mr. Ross at his house and beg him to speak out against the movement because they see what it's doing. Ross agrees to this, that it's out of control, and he promised them that he'll put an end to it. But then the following day, he tells all the students that the wave is a real youth movement taking place in schools all over the country. And that the movement's leader will will give a televised speech tomorrow. So he and at this point too, he has like all of the detractors, basically David and Lauree, I think, are the main ones, like expelled from the classroom. Like taken to the library. He has this he sets up this big like assembly in the auditorium at the school the next night. And so the wave students, like all the members of the wave, come there, and they're like, yeah, we all got to go. And then the one girl's like, yeah, everybody wear blue. And then they're wearing armbands and shit that have like a wave symbol on it. So yeah, it was just creepy. So and I mean, after before this happened and everything, like now David and Lauree are like, what the fuck is going on? Why is Mr. Ross turning on us? And then what happens after that?
So what happens after that is like peak autocratic psychology. So what Hitler would do, not just Mussolini, a lot of these people, what they would do is that they would hold these rallies, right? And they would say that let's say the rally is going to start at 7 o'clock at night or whatever. So people show up, and let's say, and then Mussolini, Hitler, whoever wouldn't actually speak until like 8 o'clock, 8:30. So you would have like a few people like do like a warm up speech or whatever. And then they'd be like, okay, get ready for the premier leader, and just wouldn't show up. And so the crowd would start getting angsty, like, okay, is this person got to speak, and so they'll like build up that tension within the audience, who in some ways is kind of almost pissed off at the leader who they're coming to speak, but then at the same time they want to hear him speak because they're loyal to this person. So there's like this competing emotions, like being pissed off at the leader for making you wait, but at the same time you want to hear what they have to say. So you don't have anything, you can't do anything at that point. You're just stuck there feeling tense. And so same thing happened here, a good minute or so, they're just kind of sitting around waiting for the TV. And then one of the people says, there is no leader, is there? And that's actually a throwback to someone during that one of those Nazi rallies when Hitler, someone shouted, he's not really coming, is he? Or he's not really here, is he? Or whatever type of thing. So they literally did a throwback to that guy at that particular rally who said that. And he's like, oh no, he sure is here, whatever. And then suddenly start playing all these Hitler speeches where he's like just going nuts or whatever. I don't speak German, but whatever he's saying.
Yeah, because like first he turns on two TVs that are staticky, and they think that he's going to be on the TV, but then he has like a big projector with Hitler playing behind him. Yeah.
Right. And then it basically says like, you thought you were so special. You thought that, you were part of something, that you were better than everyone else. And that gave you the right to treat people badly. It's like, oh my God. And they're all like crying and shit because it's real, like so embarrassed. Like it's realized like how obsessed they be, because you remember the real project only lasted a school week, 5 days, and then that's how fast they got out of hand. In the movie they go like 2 or 3 weeks to make it seem more believable. But no, that's how quickly, and again too, they're teenagers. So easy
and you see the damage of this too in this in this character of Robert, who was like kind of an outcast before this all happened, and he finally once in his life felt like he belonged to something.
That was what made it. He was like the most fierce member too, because of that. Yeah, like at one point
that's a good example, like in today's age with like the incel movement and stuff like that, where people or like with online, where people get so, like shyer people who are just primarily online and don't know how to interact in real society necessarily, have fallen down into these rabbit holes of stuff like this, where they feel like they're finally part of something, and feel like then finally start to feel more superior to people, and then to the point where they end up like hating other people. So and
then sometimes it proves their point, because let's say they finally do something that does make them successful at whatever it is, like if they want to get a girlfriend or whatever it might be. So then that then proves to them that what they're doing is right, because now it turned out what they wanted to do, they were successful at. So now they get even more into it, because like, oh, we see see, the guy told me to, do these pickup lines, and then it worked on this girl, and now I'm dating her. So now it's totally cool to be a misogynist piece of shit because it worked, and it's like, it's not good, and then but then the
Well, I mean,
worst.
and honestly, though, it does only work for a short time most of the time too, because
Yeah,
most of the time, women are smart enough to realize that wait, this guy's an asshole, and I don't want to be with him. So,
well,
at least
that's the
I
thing.
hope.
Yeah, no, you're totally right though, and it's like I know this is like a controversial field. I don't even know if it's considered like an actual science or practice, but there's an idea called evolutionary psychology, and I think part of it has to do with like how people. I might be just explaining something completely different, but like
Yeah.
it's basically it's like what people like men and women particularly, but like even like people of like different cultures, like we are brought up with certain values, and then those are passed down from generation to generation. That at a certain point, it almost comes naturally to us just because of like how long this has been like in our almost like our DNA code, so to speak. And so like women, and particularly, have always for the longest time have had to always look behind their back, be very watchful, be very just fiercely like monitoring like every type of situation that they go through because they're always looking out threats or whatever. So because of that, women I almost have like a sixth sense where like they know a guy is like a creep without even really knowing for sure. Like
Yeah.
there's like something about that they could sense something's wrong, whereas a man might not even have those red flags going on because they're not just like I'm not saying that like men don't get hurt. What I'm just
No.
saying is like so for example, I know I'm kind of rambling, but like back when I was like younger, like in my early 20s or whatever, and I was like, what's the point of feminism? Why can't we all just be equal? Type of bullshit, whatever. And so like I was talking to a lady who was like a Baha'i, and she taught at a university, I think Notre Dame. And she's saying, yeah, okay, she's like patient with me and stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, but like, let me just ask you something. He goes, do you ever go for a walk, outside your neighborhood? I go, yeah. He goes, do you ever walk alone? I go, yeah, most time I walk alone. He's like, do you ever go for walks at night? I go, yeah, what's the big deal? He's like, well, that's the thing is that for women, they got to do this sort of mental calculation in their mind of whether or not it's a good idea to walk alone, especially at night, And so like that thought never even crossed my mind because there was no need for it to cross my mind. You see what I'm getting at? Like,
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
like that's the only point I'm making. But like so there's like the red pill is like the guys who are like they join this group.
I was gonna say I mean, what you were saying here too. It's like very similar to like when people were being mad at the Black Lives Matter movement, where it's like, why should we care about just Black lives? Well,
Right.
It's the whole analogy where it's like if you're in a neighborhood and one house is on fire, do you spray water on all the houses? No, you're concerned about the one house that's on fire right now. Yeah, so
that the fire could spread to other houses. And even if that's not the case, you still should want to save someone's house because it's a burning house. You know what I mean? Like even if you're not going to,
and that's why we're caring about 123 Elm Street and not 124 Elm Street at this moment, because that's the one that's on fire. So. It's like...
Right, exactly. And one of the things, because like there was a period of time, was a very short period of time, mind you, about 6 months maybe, where I kind of did fall under on this sort of right wing. It wasn't really right wing. It was more of like I don't even know what you would call it. Like it was just like it was some kind of it was some kind of rabbit hole. I'm not even really sure, because even back then I was still pretty wary about the right wing. So if I saw myself, I'm like, oh, I don't like that. That seems like a right wing site. I'm not going to go with it, type of thing. But like,
yeah.
But sometimes I would get fooled here and there, but like it was like basically like, well, why do we need feminism? Why can't we just be equal or whatever, and so like I would read some of these articles, and like sometimes they would like sneak in these little things in the articles that I would catch because I'm just good at that kind of thing. But then I started thinking, I'm like, but what if there's people out there who are reading this stuff who don't catch these little things they're sneaking in that are kind of slowly radicalizing them? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like a subliminal type thing almost. Yeah.
And so the red pill one is where it's almost like the wave, where they're like, they feel strong, they feel like they're part of a group, like the Andrew Tate people. Those are like what they call the red pill philosophers, if you want to call them philosophers. But the worst one than that though is the black pill. The black pill is the worst one. The reason why is because they believe that there's absolutely nothing they can do that's going to improve their lives. They're genetically predisposed to be losers. Well, what happens then? You get shooters, you get terrorists, you get people who they literally have nothing to look forward to. Like you got the Elliot Roger guy who killed those college girls because they wouldn't sleep with them. And he thought, well, I'm rich, I'm well manicured, I got a nice face, I'm well spoken, I'm well cultured, how come they don't like me? They go out with these slobs who got like, I think at one point in his manifesto, he had written something along the lines that he saw a girl going out with a guy who had like a ketchup stain on his shirt, and he was like just so like angered by this. Like, here I am wearing like really expensive clothing that I've like maxed out my credit cards to buy, and then this guy here has got fucking food stains on his shirt and she's still going out with him. It just like infuriated him to the point where he just stewed on it forever and ever and ever, to the point where he's like, yeah, go ahead.
And I was gonna say that's something that easily could happen to like almost anybody in certain ways, because I mean, I know like within my own life, I've seen things like where there's a girl that like maybe an ex-girlfriend or something, I see the new guy she's with and I'm just like, why is she with him? He's such a, jerk or a dork or whatever, but you can't let that grow in you. And most people don't, because like naturally we're all going to be jealous of somebody at some point for some reason, but you can't let it grow to the point where you think that you're superior, so you have to kill everybody or whatever, so.
Yeah, but that's where it gets like super, super dangerous, is that. So yeah, luckily this guy cut it off before it got to the point of like just being like utterly insane, because like,
yeah, so he was able to, but it, but in this Wave movie, it's like you got Robert here, who very well, if this didn't get cut off and this thing grew, I could easily see Robert being one of those, shooters or something like that would take out a school or whatever,
Oh yeah, so like a terrorist attack against like a rival group or just anyone who does. Because that's a subtle thing, because he had really long hair at first, then he got his haircut like within that week later, show that he's more respecting his body, his image. How he presents himself to the world, things like that. Like Nazis. That's the other thing too I love too about the original Nazis. Like these neo-Nazis who have like shaved heads, have like tattoos all over their bodies. I'm like, dude, you're going completely against like what the original. Like they are all about like wearing very like tight-knit clothes, tailor-made, like
It's funny too, like I've listened to a lot of like podcasts and books and stuff about like cults and different things like that, and a lot of times the people that are in charge, like Hitler or somebody, have this idealized person of humanity, like the ideal Superman or whatever you want to call it, and 9 times out of 10 they don't match that person. Like Hitler was in this blonde-haired, blue-eyed type thing, yet he was dark-haired, dark-eyed. It
that's
doesn't.
The thing. Cared though. That's the thing. Nobody cared because he was the one talking about it. That's what fucks us up so much.
And it's like you can see that in today's world too, in less than like even when it comes to more when it comes to beliefs, where you have somebody like Donald Trump, who has been married several times, has cheated on several wives, is a felon, has done all of these bad things that are basically anti-Christian, but then he espouses that we need to have like basically a Christo-fascist society, and Christians just line up and say, man, this is our savior here, and it's like he's not obeying anything he's telling you to obey because he wants to take your rights away. He doesn't care about what he does.
Right. So the perfect fascist leader, any kind of autocratic leader, what they're also really good at doing is inspiring people who are more talented than they are to basically do their propaganda for them. And so like they get, so like I don't know why I'm thinking Elijah Muhammad from the Nation of Islam. Okay, so Elijah Muhammad I think he stopped school around 5th or 6th grade, according to what he said. And so, because back then, not everyone went the full, all the way to high school. That was not, some people didn't get to do that. So, yeah. So after, he quit school because he just couldn't, he had to work like, like I think his family has some land, maybe not much, but, he had pretty much work, for that when he was like 10, 11 years old or whatever. And then, because of that, he had poor reading comprehension, poor writing comprehension, etc. He later moved to Detroit because he had heard that, there was lots of jobs there and that, he could build a good life for himself, but turned out it wasn't really that great. And so he pretty much was unemployed in a new city where he didn't know as many people. And so, and the weather is obviously a lot different from Georgia to Detroit, Michigan. So after he founded the Nation of Islam, after the leader of the Nation of Islam gave him like assignments, like basically saying like, read these books, like he gave him like a huge list of books that he was supposed to read on like just various subjects. And he went and read them and stuff like that. And he, he got better at writing and stuff. But like even when he wrote, there was something like clunky about his writing. Like it's hard to describe. It was just like it didn't very flow very well. And there was just like, I don't know, just something about it. It was just like, how is this guy like a leader of a movement where people like pledge like their entire allegiance to? And I start reading the writings, like articles and books that members of the organization that he's the leader of, their writings are better than the writings of the actual leader itself are. And I'm like thinking, wow, like this really, he really has these guys like wrapped around his finger. Like they're doing the work for him and they're doing it better than he can do it,
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's amazing. It's amazing, like, how that works. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's just so it's so funny how too like a kernel of an idea too that like whether it be good or bad can like snowball into like a big movement or a big idea, whether it be a positive thing or in most cases sadly a negative thing, whether it be a cult or a political or religious movement, so yeah,
I think they're all cult like. The other thing too about like you mentioned about the Christian fascists or the whatever they call it these days,
Christo-fascist,
Christo-fascist movement, is that like what interesting about that is not only heck damn it, now I got the hiccups. Not that's because I sat up, I was laying down and I sat up real fast. So not only are they doing the work for Trump by like making his case better than like how he could make his own case because he's such a fucking moron, but also like making excuses for his bad behavior and somehow still managing to make it work into the Christo-fascist ideology. And one of the big things I've been seeing online, especially on Facebook, because that's usually where all like the hardcore boomer religious people go, because they don't go on Twitter and shit like that. Facebook is pretty like a graveyard, both metaphorically and unfortunately physically. But like, and then so what they saying is, well, in the Bible, it says that God will sometimes intentionally choose a person who's not a good person to be the leader in order to prove how powerful God is himself, because it's easy to just choose someone who's a good leader to become a good leader, but it's more difficult to choose someone who's bad and then make that person into a good leader. And I'm like, wow, the mental gymnastics here,
I know.
like you just gold medal Olympics.
That's the thing with any of this type of like fascism or occult-like behavior that was an example in this movie. It's like I said, a small idea can become like a mountain, and it's like you can't, and people will do anything to defend that idea or that person, whether it be Hitler or Trump or Elijah Muhammad or whoever, that has been a cult-like figure. So
yeah. And there's another thing I noticed too about when Trump got shot, a few weeks ago. Like, God, it's only been a month ago. It seems like it's been forever ago. But
by the time this airs, it might be 2 months, but still.
Yeah, it still is not a long time, but like it's so this woman was saying she's got like her own, she was on like a Christian Facebook page. I don't think she runs it, but she's like the most person who does like the most comments on the page. It's like for some female pastor.
Yeah.
I got nothing against that. I got nothing against female pastors, but you know who will? Probably the Christo-fascists who will take over and they won't allow women to be pastors. But no matter. She can enjoy her sliver of power she has now. And then later on, she'll be made into a subservient housewife. So, but forcibly so. Not by choice, but and so be careful what ideologies you choose to cape for. But anyway, so this woman commented something about how God had protected Trump, and she had all these like Bible verses.
But what you were just saying, it reminds me. There's this. I wish I could remember her name, but there's this musician who has this song, and she has different verses to it based on whatever's happening, and it's usually about people within the like right wing fascist movement who are like get people to turn on them, and the song is like, I never thought that the leopards would eat my face.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard that joke, the face eating or leopard face eating party or whatever, something like that. I've heard that meme or whatever. And yeah, so this lady, she had this weird thing called like the 3 or the 4, something to do with some. and she was making like memes about it, and like nobody understood because the context. Oh, like to make it important, making a meme, people have to like understand what you're talking about for it to be like a
Exactly.
success. Like I make memes that are so obscure, I know that no one's gonna really notice it, but the idea comes to me, I want to make it anyway. But I know it's not gonna get like 500,000 views, because of it or whatever. So she was doing something like that, like called like the 3, the 4, and it had something to do with some prophecy from the book of Daniel, where King Nebuchadnezzar had thrown like 3 people into like a furnace to like execute them because they were like they believed in the one true God or whatever. And then like a 3rd or a 4th person, like they started coming out, and then they were children at first when he threw them into the fire. So he's killing children by burning them to death. That's great, I guess. And there was like only 2 or 3 of them, but then he sees them emerging out of there, and now they're adults. And there's a 4th or a 3rd one. I don't remember what, but there was an extra person there. And then that person was supposed to be like the Messiah. So you're saying that Trump's the Messiah I mean, like what? Like, like
That's the thing. People will believe anything, sadly, and try to, bake it, as they say, into believing whatever, bake their crumbs that end up burnt into like a shit pie that you're not going to eat, So,
eat that shit, but it's like how I hate Alex Jones, but Alex Jones had a great metaphor for when he was at that time he was opposed to David Icke, the other competing conspiracy theorists who were, they're both conspiracy theorists are against each other all the time because they want to have the lion's share of their viewers or whatever. So at that point, David Icke was gaining more and more steam, more popularity. And so Alex Jones was threatened by that. And so when they were making a documentary about David Icke, they were interviewing Alex Jones about him, and he was basically saying that what David Icke's job is to take a turd in a take a turd. Wow, that's a Freudian slip. Taking a turd in a punch bowl, and basically like how no one's gonna want to drink from that bowl because he's taking real conspiracy theories, but then he's making them sound stupid by talking about reptiles and shit. So he's like a conspiracy in himself. He's there to make conspiracy theories look bad, like So it's like okay, so he's like a double, triple, quadruple agent who is a conspiracy theorist, and he's making money as a conspiracy theorist. But at the same time, his real agenda is to make conspiracy theorists look stupid. Okay, nobody's that clever, like including him.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry, that was just a weird tangent. But like, so what I just can't understand is going so far to now actually believing that Trump himself is the Messiah. Like I can get like he's the harbinger to the Messiah, blah, blah, blah. But now you're just literally replacing him with Christ, or rather you're replacing Christ with him. Like, so now he is the Messiah to you. Like, that's just like, there's no coming back from that, unfortunately, for most people.
There isn't.
Maybe
And it's really scary. I mean, how easily this happens, and hopefully we have a better future where this doesn't happen as often. But with the invention of the internet and other things, it seems to be happening more and more. And now with AI and other things, and eventually it's just going to be AI as the new godlike figure. So
the new Messiah, because the AI has the conglomerate of all knowledge ever recorded in human history and can just spit out whatever. Like that thing you showed me. The Russian bots are out in full force now because the election's close by. Where the Kamala Harris, where it's like, no, we know, but now we have proof of how Kamala got herself to the top, and it has AI quote art of her as a prostitute walking on the street. It's like, you seriously think that this photo has been sitting around for decades and no one has saw fit to release until now?
And to get on all this too is like the power of AI, unfortunately, is getting to the point where people are questioning real photos as well, whether it be like the crowd size of somebody or of somebody's rally, or for good or bad, or anything. And people are using it just like I thought they would years ago. And obviously we're running into a apocalyptic future if we let things go this way, where it's going to be like the Terminator or one of those other movies, or the Matrix, more so in certain ways. It's scary as hell in a lot of ways, and I don't want to be all doom and gloom here, but I just hope that if people, I always feel that there's, you got to look for the helpers, as Mr. Rogers said. When things are going bad, look for the helpers. And I think that we just need to uplift those people that are out there helping people and doing good for the world. Even if it's just your neighbor or something like that, just, do that. And I don't think we'll be able to fall into something like fascism as easily. But the thing is, this showed you that people, whether it be something where you fall into the fascism or you just ignore it, you're still part of the problem in a lot of ways. And that's the problem, where when you're living through something like we're living through currently, there's several genocides going on in the world, and nobody seems to give a shit half the time because it doesn't affect them directly. You can really see why things happen during World War II, and a lot of people didn't give a shit. I mean, America didn't enter the war until late, so it's...
Yeah. It was only after Pearl Harbor.
They were hosting Nazi rallies at Madison Square Garden shortly before we entered the war, so it's...
Yeah, the American Party, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but let's all just have good thoughts and prayers that, I mean, I know that sounds bad, but I really think so. Like, if we all just look to the good people and support each other, and just realize that humanity is one human race, we all should support each other. We can't, trying to make yourself feel like you're better than your brother or sister or non-binary friend. It's not good, So, yeah. Any other thoughts here on this, the wave here before we wrap things up?
Yeah, just one thing I was thinking of. So I was, again, I love this story a lot. I think it's very poignant, especially in our era right now. Because you mentioned too about the AI. Trump's new technique is now saying that Kamala Harris is making her crowds look bigger by using AI video.
Yeah.
Like her team is putting people in their crowds that don't exist. I'm like, that guy is such a sore loser. But anyway, like the thing though that I kind of a little bit upset with, I just thought about this a little bit ago when we were talking, is the experiment wasn't even really based on what the question was, though. Like the question the student asked was, how did regular German people, not people who were part of the Nazi party, because that was what the question was. She was like, well, were all Germans Nazis? And he said, no, actually only about 10% of the population was actually actual card-carrying members of the Nazi party. So then her follow-up question was, well, how could basically 90% of the population who weren't even Nazis claim that they had no idea what was going on? And the way he answered the question was then forming his own fake Nazi.
Yeah, so he
party.
didn't really answer the question. And maybe that brings up what I was just saying too, is the fact that we live, when you're living through global events like we are right now and people are ignoring them, that answers more the question that was asked. Because you see people defending or ignoring literal genocide daily. And I mean, I'm not saying but there's by no means, in my opinion, that, little Jack or Jane living in Ohio or something is going to be able to save the world. And I'm not saying that you can't live your life and, enjoy a good piece of pizza or enjoy a good movie or something like that. But making yourself aware of what's going on in the world and not succumbing to that and becoming part of that issue when it gets closer and closer to you is a good thing. And at least being aware and making other people aware of what's going on and talking to your representatives, whether they listen or not, most likely not, to what's going on is a good thing. And we should all stand up for people, whether it be the poor or the, downtrodden of any kind, so because a lot of times they can't speak for themselves. So,
yeah. Yep.
Sorry, I'm about to cry. Anyway, so So I hope that you guys enjoyed this kind of different episode for us. Look at a good thing you can do too is in all of our show notes, I always list a lot of charities and organizations that can help you or other people with any kind of issues that are going on in the world. So look at them, see if there's anything you can do to help. Go, if you don't want to go into any of those, look for a local soup kitchen or something. Just help each other. Be a good person, whether it even be just, helping your mom or dad do a daily chore or something that they are having issues with if they're getting older, or, watching your sister's kids for them, whatever, something that'll help people in the world in a good way, and don't take advantage of other people either. So,
Yeah.
But, if you want to help us out in any way, you can also go to all2real2.com and check out everything. We have our TeePublic there. We have our Patreon. It's a good way to keep the show on the air, or whatever you want to call this, on the streamings. And check out our social media and share the show, especially this episode. I think it's kind of poignant for people to listen to.
Oh, yeah.
Don't mean to sound all preachy here, but I guess we are. So yeah,
Hey, it's okay. A little bit preachy. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Just, remember this, folks, that more than anything, I love you. Don't start a fascist cult. Sesame loves you. And until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to All Too Real 2 podcast, a Cullen Park production. Produced and edited by Michael E. Cullen II. Music by Matthew Hawes. Subscribe and share the show. Visit us at cullenpark.com.
The great visionary leader of India, Mahatma Gandhi, said, "It is health that is real wealth, and not pieces of gold and silver." Listen to the Healthy Grocer radio show on your favorite podcast platform. We know that health is our greatest wealth, and we will be discussing all aspects of natural healing. Explore everything from supplements, superfoods, and healthy lifestyle choices to help conquer stress and boost productivity. Top industry experts and natural health professionals join us for a deep dive into our healing journey. You can find the Healthy Grocer radio show on demand every day, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And remember, health is your greatest wealth.